Hello and welcome to another episode of India and Global Left. If you want to support our channel, do consider becoming a YouTube member, a Patreon, or donate a small amount given in the link in the description box. Without further ado, let me welcome our guest tonight, Professor Foad Izadi. Professor Izadi teaches at University of Tehran. Professor Izadi, welcome back to India and Global Left.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'd come to my geopolitical questions, but I wanted to start out by asking you about the impact of the war on Iran at large. In what ways have the daily lives of people been impacted by the war?
Very difficult. Today, we had rain forecast. In this part of the world, we don't get a lot of rain. So when we are forecasting rain, people generally pay attention. And the Americans and Israelis hit oil depots just a couple of hours before rain. That created huge smoke. And with rain, it created acid rain, black rain, all over the city. We have dams, water systems that are polluted. The Iranian Red Crescent has asked people not to go out. They have asked people who were out when the rain started to change clothes and different instructions. So Americans and Israelis have no limits. They want to pollute waters of a city of 15 million people. They kill as many people as they can. A few days ago, Netanyahu visited an Israeli military base, and he used the same term for Iranians that he used before he started his genocide in Gaza. In twisted Zionist ideology, if you label a nation Amalek, then you can get to kill their women and children. And this is what he called Palestinians before killing over 70,000 women and children in Palestine. And he called Iranians, labeled Iranians the same. On the first day of the attacks, they targeted a school, primary school, little girls, 165 were killed. We have lost over 1,400 civilians. This is yesterday's data. We are dealing with the Epstein class. They like to rape little American girls, and they like to bomb and kill little Iranian girls. So it's been very difficult.
I wanted to ask you about the significance of the US-Israeli strikes on Iranian oil depots and refinery facilities, particularly given yesterday we heard from President Pezeshkian that Iran is cautious about attacking its neighboring countries. What is your interpretation of President Pezeshkian's message, and what is the significance of all of this, and also about the global economy?
This is part of the Eastern culture that when you create discomfort, you apologize. And since this is a war that the other side started, but still we live in a war zone, there is discomfort for the neighboring countries as well. So the apology goes back to the culture that we have here. Trump thought that this is a sign of weakness, and he had this social truth posting saying that Iran has apologized, they are surrendering, and then he said he will hit new places, which he did this morning. And then Iran's president issued another statement after what Trump said, clarifying that Iran is not surrendering. So the aim that they have is to change Iran's government. This is not an Iranian professor's analysis. This is what Trump and Netanyahu said on the first day of their attack. There was a political solution, diplomatic solution at hand. We had the Omani foreign minister going to Washington. I don't know if you saw his interview with CBS News. It's available on YouTube. He said that an agreement was available within 24 hours. He said that Iran was giving concessions that Iran was not available to give in 2015. And he said that people should avoid war. He basically begged Trump not to attack Iran, and Trump attacked Iran just a few hours after that interview, which is understandable. If you want to change a country's government, you don't enter a diplomatic solution with the government that you want to change. They have failed. They were thinking that they can overthrow the Iranian government quickly. In fact, they have created this rally around the flag effect in Iran, like last time in June when they attacked. Netanyahu had asked Iranians to come to the streets in millions, and they are every night chanting against him and Trump. Even people who didn't like government policies, they don't want to send their little girls and not to see them again. They don't want their hospitals to be bombed. They have bombed at least 10 hospitals. They're repeating what they did in Gaza. They bombed every single school, every single hospital. They're doing the same thing in Iran. People don't like that. So it was foolish for them to think that they can have a nation liking them while they're bombing that nation. How foolish can you be? But this is what they did. So they're going to fail. They're not going to be able to achieve their goals. They're going to kill a lot of people in process. Iran has no other choice but to respond. If Iran doesn't respond, then they want to attack Iran again, kill Iranian leader again. This is what Israelis said yesterday. They said that they would kill the new Iranian leader. So you need to create enough pain to make sure that this is not repeated again. And the only way that Iran can do that is by hitting US bases, which are in this area. They become legitimate military targets under Article 51 of the UN Charter. This is right to self-defense. If your country is attacked, you can fight back. How do you fight back? Targeting legitimate military targets. So these bases are legitimate military targets. It's unfortunate that these bases are located in these countries, but Iran has no other choice. They decided to provide these bases with places to be stationed. Iran has hit hotels. What they did was that they evacuated a number of hotels in these cities, and they put American soldiers there. They evacuated the bases and moved the soldiers to these hotels. If you have a hotel full of American soldiers, that's legitimate military target. CIA offices in office areas in these cities, legitimate military targets. CIA is providing the data for all these killings that US military is doing. And then we have this issue of debris. They shoot down some of these missiles that Iran is sending, targeting US military. They shoot these drones and missiles down. That creates debris. Iran has no control where these debris fall. I was watching CNN. We had an oil facility in UAE burning because of the debris, not because Iran hit. So if they don't like these unintended consequences, maybe they shouldn't target Iranian missiles. Let them reach their intended audience. And then we had Tucker Carlson, the American journalist, reporting that Qatar and Saudi Arabia have arrested Mossad agents trying to blow up things in these countries and blame Iran. So the Israelis managed to basically get American soldiers to fight Netanyahu's war for him. He wants to do the same thing with the Saudi soldiers, Qatari soldiers, fighting his war against Iran. for him. The hope people in Iran have is that the leaders of these countries realize being on the same side with Netanyahu is not a good idea. They're hoping that they don't fall in that trap. So we have a war zone, a war that was not necessary. And then this is going to have, yes, international economic consequences. For every debt, Iranian or otherwise, for every dollar that oil becomes more expensive, for all different consequences that a major war has, Trump and Netanyahu are responsible because they could avoid this war. They could have an agreement with Iran. And this changing Iran's government is wishful thinking. They shouldn't have tried doing that. It was foolish to start that project.
I'm not sure if you have read the Washington Post's reports on a report by the U.S. National Intelligence Council, which comprised or compiled data from 18 different intelligence agencies, and said that any kind of attack, a bombing campaign or a decapitation strike would not, they said it's unlikely to change government in Iran, or the weak opposition will not be able to do anything. The attack came despite that. I wonder.
Trump has this tendency of ignoring his own intelligence community. The same intelligence community, 2 months before the June war, the head of the U.S. intelligence community, Tulsi Gabbard, went to U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee. The video is available. She provided another consensus of U.S. intelligence. It's called Worldwide Threat Assessment. It's available at dni.gov. It says 3 things about Iran's nuclear program. The first thing, it says Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. The second thing is that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon program. And the third thing the report says is that Iranian leaders have not decided to have a nuclear weapon program. And when they asked Trump about the report this is the consensus of the US intelligence community. When they asked Trump about it, Trump dismissed it, and he fell for Netanyahu's propaganda points. And they did the same thing again with regard to this report that Washington Post is pointing to. Because, if you listen to U.S. intelligence community, you would not be at the service of Netanyahu. I think what he's doing is probably related to some video they have on him with the Epstein file. The Mossad probably has a video of him raping little girls. And he's really not interested in these intelligence assessment. He's interested in providing a service to people who have blackmailed them.
Several attacks, quote unquote, as you described, there are debris that end up hitting different areas in the Gulf countries. There are reports about one hitting a desalination site in Bahrain today. This is, of course, after a day of a desalination site in Iran being, I think it is in southern Iran, being hit. This has been reported widely. What's your interpretation of that, given that many IRGC officials said that attack legitimate targets in the region would continue? Your interpretation of that?
The attack on the Iranian site came out of Bahrain. This is what the Iranians have said, that if these countries provide bases for the US to attack Iran, then Iran has no other choice but to respond. They were saying that they are not doing that, but we saw, I think it was day 2 of the war, we saw US jets falling off Kuwaiti airspace. And Kuwaitis said that we shot them down by mistake. But the question is, what were they doing in Kuwaiti airspace? Because Kuwaitis had said that they would not be allowed in Kuwaiti airspace. So the fact that they get shut down shows that they were there. So although these countries have said that they want to not provide services to the US, in practice, it seems some of them at least are doing that. So if Iran realizes that that is happening, then that becomes legitimate military target, because you have to respond to the attack, to the place that the attack came from. And this is what Iran did. That's legitimate military target.
I wanted to quickly ask you about the impact of the assassination of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei on Iranian society. There are reports about his successor being elected. What is the general impact on people of Iran at large, or probably even beyond Iran and in the region?
You know, he was a political figure, a spiritual figure. You're not supposed to kill leaders of other countries. And this was quite heavy. Even people who did not like his policies, they don't want the leader of their country to be killed in this manner by someone like Netanyahu, a war criminal. And so on the first day, we had millions of people showing up to the streets. And since that first day, every night, as I said, you know, about 8, 9 o'clock at night, if you open up your window, you will hear people chanting slogans against Trump and Netanyahu. So people have not gotten over that assassination. And the type of relationship, you know, since you're in India, the way Indians reacted to Gandhi's assassination, something similar to that.
And also beyond the region, we saw even protests in Bahrain that were crushed. We saw similar protests from Karachi to Kashmir. So this had implication beyond the region as well.
It was a huge mistake. You know, these are Shia Muslims. I was looking at this CIA report about 50 years ago. They had some people who were saying that the CIA should assassinate Imam Khomeini, the first leader of the Islamic Republic. And then I saw an analyst writing a note that don't create a martyr for Shias. So Americans knew better 50 years ago. They have created a martyr. So when you create a martyr for this community, not a good policy choice. You're going to see consequences for many years to come.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about your assessment of the Iranian response so far in terms of missile attacks and drone, given the mainstream media has been completely giving us a one-sided report, as if Iran has not been able to respond, as if Iran is at the brink of collapse. So if you could give us a realistic assessment about your assessment about Iranian missile strength, drone strength, and how Iran is gearing up for a long-term fight.
You know, we are facing two nuclear regimes. US spends 100 times more on its military than Iran does. And Iran has been under sanctions for 47 years. And it's amazing, with all the sanctions, this is indigenous technology. So it shows you can survive American hegemony and thrive at the same time. Iran's stockpiles are not unlimited, but the Iranian military leaders have done a good job creating these missiles, dispersing these missiles, and using them wisely, because the numbers are not unlimited. Then you need to pace the type of response that you have. We had the head of the spokesman for Iran's military last night saying that Iran can continue shooting at the other side for 6 months. And the hope is that Trump and Netanyahu realize they made a mistake. The hope is that they stop today. They can. They started this. They can stop today. they can declare victory and go do other mischiefs. If they stop today, Iran will assess whether they have created enough pain to the other side to make sure that this is not repeated. And if their assessment is that they have done enough, then Iran will stop. And then this is how you can get this ended. But with genocidal people, I'm not very optimistic that they would do the right thing, because they didn't need to start this war to begin with.
I wanted to ask you about Iran's allies, given the West has collectively mobilized from Australia to Spain to Italy to France, you name it, Britain. Everyone has been contributing to this unjust war. We've known that Iran has many allies in the region. What has been the responses from the allies, given some commentators pro-Iran seem to be frustrated, particularly about the Iraqi allies, the Sadrists, who had heroic response during the occupation, resistance to the American occupation after 2003. They say that they haven't been forthcoming enough. What is your assessment of the role of the Iranian allies so far?
Not all European countries have been as bad as some. Spain, for example, a Spanish prime minister has been saying repeatedly that this is an illegal war. With regard to
but Spain has also said, but I wanted to put this in record, that Spain has also said that it would send reinforcement to the Akrotiri and Dhekelia bases in Cyprus, which, as we know, is not just a British base, but these are NATO bases and very important points for West Asia.
True. But, we are talking about Europeans. They have this history of colonialism. So if we get even one sentence good out of some European politician, that's something. With regard to Iran's friends, they have done a lot, and they have been under a lot of pressure. U.S. has been killing and bombing people in Iraq for the last 9 days since the start of the war. In Lebanon, same thing. Israelis have been bombing southern Lebanon, Beirut, without any limitation. So this is a fight for humanity, basically. If Trump and Netanyahu manage to get away with what they want to do, then they become emboldened and they would do other things. So Iran is fighting for Iran. Iran is fighting for civilized world, and these organizations are doing their best. What we hope is that people all over the world realize who Trump is, who Netanyahu is. These are fascists. They engage in major criminal behavior, and that public opinion is important. Sympathy towards Iran is important. Realizing that this type of mayhem and murder should not become successful. This should not become a norm. We should not be in a new normal of countries attacking other countries, killing their leaders, balkanizing. These things should not happen.
A lot of countries from the global south have expressed solidarity with Iran. People are talking about possible Russian and Chinese help, particularly technology transfer and other kinds of help. What kind of help does Iran expect from not just China and Russia, particularly them, but also other global south countries?
Iran is also fighting for China. One of the reasons they want Iran is because they want to totally dominate West Asia. They don't have any leverage against China right now. Trump thought that he could use tariffs, but after the Supreme Court ruling, that's not possible anymore. China gets over 50% of its oil and gas from Persian Gulf. They think if they can take over this region totally, they can, that's a leverage they don't have. Right now, they don't put pressure on Saudi Arabia or Qatar for selling oil to China because that would increase the value of Iranian oil. But if they can take over Iranian oil, then they would make sure that that leverage is used against China. The same thing is true with Russia. They use Ukraine to put pressure on Russian western borders. If they manage to get away with their plans about Iran, they will use Iran, disintegrated Iran, as a place to put pressure on Russia's southern border. When you look down the map, you have Turkey, which is a NATO member. You have Iran, Afghanistan, China in the southern parts of Russia. So Iran becomes important for many reasons, including trade. And these countries realize this. There are people in Iran that were hoping that they could do more. They are doing some. They are not indifferent. But given the severity of the situation, the hope is that they would do more.
It's important to talk about Palestine, given the root cause of all this is Israel. And so we know that it is ultimately linked to the settler colonialism in Palestine, in the occupied territories, and so on. And given Iran helps in building solidarity or resisting in Palestine, I wanted to ask you, what could be the impact of this conflict on Palestine in the near or distant future? And if I could throw in one more question, in one of the shows at Piers Morgan, you said that Iran supports Hamas and the other resistance forces in Palestine, and you were cut off. If you could update us on that, what happened after that, and in general, what is the impact of this war on Palestinian resistance?
As I said on that show, it's an honor and a responsibility for Iran to support Palestine, including Palestinian resistance movements. These are freedom fighters trying to get their land back, legal under international law. It's illegal to occupy other people's land, and if they want it back, they can use military force to do that. And Iran continues to support the Palestinian cause. For many years, Americans have been telling Iranian leaders, if you lower your support for Palestine, we get all the sanctions off your back and we'll have trade with you and other things. Even today, Trump says, if you have people who are nice to Israel, then he will stop the war. He wants to elect Iran's leaders who are nice to Israel. Iranian leaders decided many years ago that support for Palestine should be a major part of Iran's foreign policy. And the reason is that we live in the same neighborhood. And if you have fascists, sooner or later, if they manage to get away with their atrocities towards Palestine, they will come after you, as they have done. So that prediction was correct. Iran should not be the only country that's supporting Palestine. We have some countries who are paying lip service. Let me say, we are worried about India. India's prime minister visit to Israel, not a good idea given the history of anti-colonialism in India. Getting too close to someone who is under indictment in international courts for war crimes, not a good idea. Some countries are supporting Israel, some countries are opposing, but just talking, not doing much. It's difficult to carry the burden of supporting Palestine for Iranians and for Yemenis. They have also done a good job. But the hope that we have is that the people who internationally, who were supporting Palestine, should be supporting Iran now at the same level. Because if they manage to take over Iran, then you can make sure that the cause of Palestine will be finished forever. The reason we have the cause of Palestine open is because of the heroic resistance of Palestinians and because of the support they have gotten from Iran. So if they get rid of Iran, they can get rid of Palestine much quicker.
The primary reason why Netanyahu and the Zionists want to break up Iran is because Iran supports the Palestinian resistance. My final question.
That's mainly. Yeah,
My
that's true.
My final question, Professor Izadi, about a third to half of our views come from the global north collectively. We saw tremendous support pouring in from the global north, people in general, not the establishment, in support of the Palestinian resistance and solidarity during the genocide. We haven't seen as much during this conflict, even though it is important to note that this is probably the first American war that is extremely unpopular in the US right from the get-go. That doesn't happen usually. But as an Iranian, what would be your message to those in the West who have been completely brainwashed, who have been told that Iranians hate Americans? They have been completely given a misrepresentation of what the Islamic Republic of Iran is. What would be your message to Americans at large?
Iranians don't hate Americans. We get visitors from US in Iran, and I encourage you to talk to them. Iranians are generally one of the nicest people, hospitable, no animosity towards Americans. They have animosity towards US foreign policy. So when you hear Iranians chanting death to America, it means death to American foreign policy. It's a chant, so they have to make it short. They cannot do the long version. But they don't mean any harm to the people of the United States. Sometimes they wonder why they elect war criminals every time they get a chance, but that's another story. Overall, there is no animosity towards Americans. And I don't really blame these Americans for having misgivings against Iran, because the US media is very much controlled by the Zionist lobby, the Zionist interest. And every day they demonize Iran. You know what happened in January? We experienced the Mossad color revolution. We had Mossad agents shooting at people. Not my words. You had Mike Pompeo sending Mossad agents greetings. We lost over 200 police officers. The American media calls this protests. In English, you don't call people who shoot at police officers, you don't call them protesters. If you're shooting at police officers, if someone shoots police officers in the United States, they are not called protesters. They're called cop killers. This is what we had. And then in the State of Union address, Trump exaggerated the number of people who were killed. The Iranian government has published the names of everyone that was killed with their ID numbers. Trump, Netanyahu, these Western media outlets have not been able to add one single name to that list. And majority of those people were victims of that Mossad operation. We had Pahlavi asking for a general strike, and these people were shooting shopkeepers that did not want to close their shops, shooting at police. We lost over 2,400 people like that. Majority of people who were killed by the other side. But they exaggerate the numbers. Trump said 32,000, extremely bigger than the real number, to demonize Iran so they can justify the attack today. So for our American friends, if you fall for Iran demonization, they look at public opinion and they may decide to attack because they think they can get away with it. So learning about Iran from sources inside Iran. We have these people outside Iran that have been out of Iran for many decades. Pahlavi stole $20 billion when he left. We had the link is available. I put it on my Twitter. Washington Post had a report. This was Washington Post estimate. $20 billion when he left Iran, he stole. So that money has been used to finance these organizations that provide this type of wrong data, provide gatherings. Um, how can you be in favor of attacking your own country? We have these Pahlavi people cheerful because US is attacking their country. How can you do that? It doesn't make sense. Even if you don't like your relatives in Iran, you don't want them dead. The Israelis and Americans are indiscriminately killing people. So the hope that we need people's prayers, solidarity, and getting to know Iran the way Iran is, as is, not through corporate media lens, not through Pahlavi outlets lens, not through Netanyahu or Trump's lens.
Part of the propaganda and misunderstanding is because of the corporate media, but part of it is also a total misunderstanding or lack of knowledge about Iranian society in the West. For instance, the gun violence, the rioters during those days, sometimes it's not understood fully given the gun culture and gun violence in the West, particularly in the United States. But even Al Jazeera columnist said that the kind of riots we saw is very unusual in Iranian society. I mean, people don't keep shooting. That's not a usual culture. But for average Americans, that's not very unusual.
And these are not usual Iranians. As you said, there is no gun culture here. People are not used to having guns. And if you see people with guns, probably they got it from the Mossad. And they got it because they were supposed to kill police agents and ordinary citizens to increase the number of deaths so they can justify a US Israeli attack on Iran after a few months. That's what they were supposed to do. They were not able to get the numbers that Trump wanted, but they killed a lot of people in the process.
We'll leave it there, Professor Izadi. Thank you so much for your time, and
Sure.
wish you more power.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ayushman. I, along with Jyotisman, have started this platform. In the last 2 years, we have tried to build content for the left and progressive forces. We have interviewed economists, historians, political commentators, and activists so far. If you have liked our content so far and want us to build an archive for the left, I have two requests for you. Please do consider donating for the cause. Link is in the description below. Also, if you are not able to do so, don't feel sad. You can always like our videos and share our videos to your comrades. Finally, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.